Oregon's running game is important. That isn't new. This question came in from Coastal Bend Fish Ninja. Nice. I was in Bend over the weekend a couple times. Great city. Spencer, have a random running back question for you. Do we have any home run hitters in the running back room? Like top end breakaway speed, take it to the house guys. Who's the fastest in the room? I can go down the list, and most of them don't have home run speed. Does Dink Riggs or D.R. Hill maybe? So there was a clip, I believe it was of D.R. Hill, on the most recent episode of Under Construction, the docuseries that's following Oregon throughout fall camp. I presume we'll get another one this week. We'll get another one next week. Then the games will begin, and we'll be back to Ducks versus them. Can't wait. Shout out the Oregon social team. They're crushing it as always. So in the room, D.R. Hill might have the most high-end speed. I haven't been able to go to practice and, clock them all with their 40 times to answer this question. So sorry I can't give you that level of detail. But I think Makhi Hughes has that ability. I wouldn't describe him as a LaMichael James, Kenyon Barner, DeAnthony Thomas, Charles Nelson type. I think Makhi Hughes, stylistically, when he runs, I don't think he's quite as big, but I think he's going to remind you a lot of Royce Freeman. He's going to be incredibly well balanced. He'll hit the big runs. He'll have enough speed. I mean, you can find plenty of clips of him breaking long runs in the American last year. And I know the American is not the Big Ten. Certainly. The American is a darn good conference, though. And I think that for Hughes, he is going to be running behind an offensive line that has 4 transfers, and Poncho, who, as we saw in episode 2, that I'll talk about later on the show, is definitely one of the leaders on this team, and that makes sense going into his second year starting at center. But I think in the running back room, Bucky Irving had that breakaway sort of speed. You can think of a lot of big runs that he had in that 2023 season. Like 2022, he had the Holiday Bowl, the big run against Washington State. There were a couple other big ones in there. Anyway, going back to your question here. I don't know if the guys that have the most speed are necessarily at the top of the depth chart. So Hughes is fast. He's fast enough to break those big runs. But I think the sort of speed and play that you are envisioning is more of a LaMichael James style, is more of a Kenyon Barner style, where, as Gus Johnson has said before, if I'm even, I'm leaving. And last year, for the first few games, and I was talking about the first 4 games earlier. Obviously, one of the biggest things I will be watching through those matchups in the lead up to that Penn State showdown on September 27th, are they able to create explosives in the run game? Because their inability to do that, or just consistently be successful on the ground against Ohio State, was a huge part of why the Rose Bowl was an issue. Well, when you trace that back to how the ground game progressed throughout the season, yeah, they weren't really creating big lanes. They weren't getting running backs to the second and third level enough. It's not like they were getting pushed back all the time. But one of the best games that Oregon played offensively last year was when Jordan James went crazy in the first half against Michigan State. I think he had like 120 yards or something at the half. People were looking up, what's the Oregon single game rushing record or single half rushing record? And then, Michigan State made their adjustments in the second half. Oregon would have been up 35-0 at the break against the Michigan State team. That wasn't that good. I think they went 5-7 last year. But they would have been up 35-0 if Dylan Gabriel hadn't thrown a pair of red zone interceptions. And as it was, they were still up 21-0. So, well, why don't we presume 1 touchdown, 1 field goal? Fine. 31-0. They would have been up 31-0 at the break if not for a couple of red zone interceptions. So that was the first game where Jordan James had a run. I think it was over 15 yards. I don't know that that's going to be, a big feature of the run game this year. I would love for it to be. And, like these are, again, first world problems, which Oregon has a lot of in the football sense. These are first world running back problems, because I've also seen Noah Whittington break his fair share of long runs. Took a kick to the house last year against Boise State. One of his best runs ever. What was it? 2022 against Arizona. He had like a 55, 60-yard touchdown run. Those are the sorts of plays I want to see. And no, Whittington and Makhi Hughes are not speed demons that are big home run hitters and you're expecting him to try to just get to the edge. They will run between the tackles. But do they have enough speed to break long runs? Yeah, I think they do. So I'm interested to see what Dink Riggs could be in the future, or De'Aaron Hill. But yeah, if they wanted a speed guy in there, De'Aaron Hill might be the fastest. I don't know. I would love to see the running backs line up and just race. See who would come out on top. De'Aaron Hill would certainly have a chance. That was the scouting report on him coming out of high school. So Monica sends this one in. Hi, Spencer, old lady here again. Hey, all are welcome, as long as you're a Duck fan. How in the world do we continue to build a great team if every year good or great players leave for the NFL? Well, I talk about recruiting a lot on this show, Monica. And the reason I do that, and the reason that I get excited, or many of you get excited, when Oregon picks up notable recruiting wins on the trail, is because while you may not get the immediate payoff on the field, they always come around eventually. And you don't always know who, but because it's not going to be everyone. Everybody that Oregon recruits over the years, not going to finish their careers with the Ducks. They're not always going to be huge impact players. But the importance of high school recruiting in particular, transfers matter too, but the importance of high school recruiting is so that when Oregon does lose a record number of players to the NFL draft as they did this past season, they have guys that are waiting in the wings ready to go. Think about Kenyon Sadiq. Last year, Kenyon Sadiq, and maybe even as a true freshman, he could have started games for a number of teams in the Big Ten. You lose your tight end to the NFL because he's out of eligibility, second-round caliber guy. You could get even more out of the tight end position this year. That's what people like me talk about with regards to why recruiting matters and being able to go from one era of players to the next and not have that big of a drop-off. Experience matters. I talk about that plenty here on the show. But the answer is, because Oregon is run by a staff that knows how to recruit really well, because they have plenty of NIL dollars to go around, because they are focused on high school talent acquisition. Not every program is, by the way. Colorado's trying to ascend to the top of the Big 12. They're just not recruiting high school kids. They bring in like less than 10. Let me see if I can find the number here. I didn't prep that right before. Okay, so they're in their 2025 class. They've got 15 enrollees. I think that's the biggest high school class compared to 33 transfers. In 2024, they brought in 12 enrollees, and they brought in that year 43 transfers. In 2026, at the moment, Colorado has 11 commits. That's not horrifically bad. But is it a super highly rated class? Are they going after that as aggressively as they should? No, they are not. So Oregon's ability to both commit to recruiting, succeed in recruiting, and bring kids in via the portal is how you be a reload program every year rather than a window program. And I think Oregon has set themselves up in that to where, as I say repeatedly, the playoff expectation is annual. It's not every third year like it is, kind of up at Washington, for instance. They can get there. I think Jed Fish can get them there. But it takes them a while. Compared to Oregon, it's, just lost a bunch of guys, just lost a bunch of NFL players, still expect to go right back to the playoff this year and be in the national championship picture. So the short answer to your question, Monica, recruiting.